Hi, it's the middle of June already, and so I've got some books to talk to you about that I've been reading so far, and I've had a good month. I even had my first 5-star, so I think you'll be able to guess which my book of the first half of the month is going to be. So the first one I read was The Morning Necklace by Kate Foster. She was listed last year for Women's Prize for Fiction for the Maiden, and I loved that one. So I went into this one thinking, well, if I love the Maiden, I'm going to love this one too, and I did. And it's a super read because once again, Kate Foster's brought to life a real life woman who lived and died in 1724 Edinburgh. Maggie Dixon was hanged in Grassmarket for concealing a pregnancy, because at that time it was against the law to conceal a pregnancy, especially if the pregnancy resulted in loss of life for the child, and then the mother also lost her life. Maggie was hanged, and on the way to Musselburgh, she awoke in her coffin and went to live another 40 years, gaining the name Half-Hanged Maggie. And there is a public house still on Grassmarket, I believe, called Maggie Dixon. The novel is a fictionalized account of her life, and she's in turns naive, vulnerable, unbreakable, and the emotions she showed when faced with her own death. It's absolutely wonderful writing. The way she builds and reclaims her story is gripping, and although this is fiction, the period, the settings, the attitudes realistically portrayed, and there's some great characters in here. Mrs. Rose, she is wonderful. It's not just a tale of survival, but it's one of emotional growth, and the epilogue had me in tears. Then I went on to The Convenience Store by the Sea by Sonoka Makeda. If you follow my channel, you know that I like these Japanese translations. And I was expecting something in the same vein as Before the Coffee Gets Cold and others of that ilk. And it isn't. The setting is a convenience store called Tenderness that sells everything from late night snacks to thermometers. And it's situated on the ground floor of a complex called Golden Villa, which mainly houses the elderly residents. And there are meeting rooms and a dining room, and one of the initiatives is that all the residents collect their lunch from Tenderness. It's a way of checking that they're okay, if anyone's missing, is something wrong with them. And the ladies of the Golden Villa have got a little fan club for the store manager, Shibo. And the descriptions of him, he sounds like some sort of film star, some heartthrob. And I did wonder in the beginning what sort of thing this was going to be. Is it going to focus on this ultra handsome man? But it doesn't. He's very much a part of a background figure, and in fact his brother, the go-to guy, seems to feature a little bit more. You've got interconnected stories, and the stories focus on something significant, whereas Before the Coffee Gets Cold is wanting to go back to a specific time and see somebody again, and the Chibineko Kitchen is seeing somebody who died. This is more about acts of kindness. It covers themes about bullying, aging, reaching for your dream, the grey divorce. You've got books about stories about toxic friendship, a couple trying to manage new life as retirees. It's a book that's about the value of community, looking out for one another, being kind to one another, and the convenience store is at the heart of everything. It didn't have the emotional hit that the other books that I've read, Before the Coffee, whatever, had, but it was still a comforting, heartwarming read. Then I read a speculative novel that comes out in July, and it's The Riverblade by T.R. Thompson. And it's seems to be set in the VR, virtual reality world, a world that's dangerous, and it's known as the River. And it's a place where you're never sure what's real and what's fantasy. But within this world, there's a virus, a musical virus, like an earworm. It gets into your head and it feeds upon your fear and destroys you. And this virus is trying to destroy the structure of the river. And within this world, we've got three narratives. We've got Cass, who's choosing violence as a way to escape. Poe, who's like a detective character, sort of throwback to the old-fashioned detectives, who's hunting the alleys and shadows of this world, searching for something. And Adlai, who seems to be the creator of this world and is slowly getting drunk in the bar. Each character is real, is fantastical. And there's another person around, a person that they all seem to be looking for. I did get a little bit lost at times, but it was a wild ride, really was. Then a book that came out at the beginning of June, beginning of this month, In the Family Way by Lainey Katz-Becker. And this is set in 1965, and it focuses on a small group of women in America. And it reminds you how far women have come in 60 years. Because here, women couldn't get bank accounts, they couldn't get credit cards, they couldn't get mortgages. Everything had to be countersigned by a male. Contraception was only available to married women. And there were homes galore for unmarried pregnant girls, and also special wards in hospitals to deal with women whose illegal abortions had gone wrong. We've got Lily, who's married to a doctor with a little girl, Jojo. She's expecting her second child, and she welcomes into her house Betsy, a 15-year-old who's been sent to one of these homes and then given over to someone in the family to look after her until her due date. And Lily and Betsy's relationship is lovely to follow. And you've got others in the group. You've got Rose, Lily's sister, who's married and a teacher, Becca, who's got 3 boys, Robin, who's something of an activist, Sarah, who's the newcomer and yet to start a family. And throughout the book, all these women have very different journeys, and they support one another as they navigate motherhood and pregnancy and everything that it entails. And there's themes here of abuse and abortion. And at the end, it skips into the 1980s. And what you notice is at the beginning of the book, the chapters are Mrs. David Berg. The women didn't even have their own name within the marriage. But then in the chapters of the final part are Miss Joanna. You know, the women have reclaimed their name, which I thought was a nice touch. So that was that one. Then I listened to The Heart in Winter by Kevin Barry, which is shortlisted for the Walter Scott Prize for Historical Fiction, set in Butte, Montana in 1891. And it's a Western, it's a love story, it's an adventure story. And there's some great characters and some very poetic turns of phrase here. Tom Rourke's a young poet who spends his time either drunk or doped up with opium. In his sober moments, he writes letters for men wanting wives. He sings a few ballads of his own. He's always like a sort of go-between. He writes letters to girls elsewhere to introduce them to men and arrange marriages. And he also assists a photographer. And into this photographic studio one day, Lord Anthony Harrington and his new bride, Polly Gillespie, arrive for their wedding photos. And it seems that Polly is almost like a sort of mail-order bride. And Tom and Polly get to know each other, and they end up running away on a Palomino pony, who is almost a character in itself. And what follows is a chase. And as it's a Western, there's violence, there's bloodshed. If you've watched HBO's Deadwood, I saw the first series, this was just too violent for me. It's got that sort of feel for it. There's a sense of doom throughout the narrative. Love and death seem to go hand in hand as the lovers try to evade capture. I enjoyed that one. There's this brutality, fear and love there, but it was a good listen. Then the final one was this one that I was sent by a publisher, To Everything There Is a Season by Julie Conrad. And it's a novel set in early 1990 that features 3 women of different ages and lifestyles whose paths sort of converge. Ivy's the character I had the most sympathy for. She's a lonely spinster who spent her life at the beck and call of her parents. She wasn't allowed out after school to play with friends. They didn't go anywhere apart from the 1 week's annual holiday to Blackpool. And when her father died, her life seemed to get even smaller as she became her mother's constant companion. And then when her mother dies, she takes to going to weekly seances. And at Mrs. Lamper's, and at one of these seances, she learns about her mother's betrayal, and her fury knows no bounds. Georgie owns a hair salon, very poor track record when it comes to men, and we've got loan sharks trying to reclaim what her ex owes. And then we've got Clara, who works for Georgie, who's got her own secrets, and Ivy takes a part-time job at the hair salon. I enjoyed Ivy's story. And there's humour and there's warmth. And it goes through, there's lots of seances in there, but the author doesn't belittle the psychic world that I know many do take comfort in. And as for Georgie and Clara, their characters, I didn't think they were as well-rounded as Ivy. I much preferred Ivy. So those were the books that I read this year, this first half of June. Can you guess what my number 1 was? The one that I gave the 5 stars to, and it's my book of the first half of the month. The Morning Necklace by Kate Foster. Absolutely stunning novel. I adored it. So that is what gets my vote for the first half of June. So let's see whether it gets knocked off its perch in the second half. So that's it. Go and enjoy the second half of June. So happy reading. Take care.